Hi, I'm Tom Burke, and welcome to Public Health on the Inside, your inside look into the world of public health. I'm the Associate Dean for Public Health Practice here at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, and through our series of podcasts, I want to take you to the front lines and introduce you to the world of public health practice. This month, we're taking the podcast on the road and heading to the beautiful streets of Barcelona, Spain. Now, one of my favorite things about teaching here at Hopkins is my annual trip to Barcelona to participate in the Fall Institute there. It's amazing to teach students from all around the world in that incredible city on the Mediterranean, in Catalonia, with its architecture, its incredible food, Gaudi buildings, and those amazing people. But Barcelona also shares with us many public health problems of big cities. During my visit, I spoke with a few participants about the future of the field, the challenges abroad, and one student struggled to find her place in public health in her homeland. Like most of the world, Spain has faced some tough economic challenges of late, and although they continue to provide their citizens with universal access to health care, the system has been in crisis. I asked Nuria Calzada, who's working with the Public Health Agency of Barcelona, along with Marcela Rivera, about some of the biggest public health problems, priorities, and successes in Spain. What do you think are some of the biggest problems in Spain right now that public health needs to pay attention to?
Reducing access to primary care, because you're generating more inequalities. Maybe in the future, that's going to be a real problem. Not only sanitary issues, but also education issues. They're cutting, at least here in Barcelona, in Catalonia, they're cutting presupuesto, ¿cómo se dice? Budget for education. So at the end, this is going to be like a boomerang, like you say. It's going to affect the whole population. And if you had money and if you have a real bad problem, you went to public healthcare. You didn't go to a private hospital because you knew that they were more worried about the budget or what the cost of any kind of intervention, and public health in the public hospitals, that was not a problem.
So Marcela, you talked about environmental health. I have to tell you, I've been coming now for 8 years, and it seems to me the environment in Barcelona is getting better each time.
Yes, I think that is true.
It doesn't smell like diesel anymore either. So the air quality is better. You're an air quality researcher. How are you doing?
Well, it has been improving in the last years. It's still not like the best in Europe, but it is good.
Yes, the environment is improving. Also, when I first came here, my students smoked during the break. There's no smoking.
There's also a law passed on banning smoking in closed places, in restaurants and bars.
But I did notice there's one new thing that I see all along the streets. Smoking terraces.
Yeah.
Restaurants that didn't have terraces. So they found a way to get around the law and still smoke.
Yeah.
But that's
outside.
Human creativity, I guess, and unfortunately nicotine addiction. While in Barcelona, I also spoke with a Canadian native, Serena Luchensky, an epidemiologist who worked at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and is now working in the City of London on a rotation as a public health registrar. Serena discussed some public health priorities in the UK and the shift in public health teams from the National Health Service system to local authorities. Here's what she had to say.
Well, things are in a really big state of flux at the moment in the UK. We have a new coalition government that is imposing major structural changes to the way that the healthcare system is run.
Because of costs?
Because of costs. And there are a lot of changes going on in public health. At the moment, we have statutory agencies that are part of the National Health Service where public health teams sit. But by 2013, our public health teams are being moved from the National Health Service to local authorities, to local government, which is quite an interesting change.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think there's good and bad to it. I think the bad thing at the moment is there is definitely a lack of clarity in how that's going to work and how that transition is going to pan out for public health professionals. I think the good aspect to it is that from a wider determinants perspective, to have public health teams working with housing and education and children's services and all of these other services and areas which are well known to affect public health, perhaps having some collaboration between these different agencies could actually be a very good thing for public health. But it remains to be seen exactly how it's going to work out, how these teams are going to integrate and fit in with local government, and also the pressures that are going to be put on public health teams politically. I think it's going to be quite difficult. Public health traditionally has been apolitical and has been able to set its priorities dependent on the needs of the population that it serves. But now they're going to have to be accountable to local political officials, and that could change the way that public health is delivered.
That shift in the UK is not all that different than many of the things that are going on here in this country, and it's created quite a bit of anxiety among people who are concerned about the strength of the workforce. For many students, finding a job after graduation seems par for the course, but for some recent graduates, uncertainty has become a real concern, specifically in areas where violence is prevalent. I spoke with Juliana Reyes, a Colombian native and second-year public health preventive medicine resident, who worried about finding a place in public health in her country of Colombia. She questions whether public health can really be a priority in countries where there's great political change, violence, conflict, and great economic uncertainty.
Well, I love Colombia. I really do. But when I finished my medical school, I realized that I want to learn more about other things. So I went to London, then I came here, I live in India as well, and realized that I'm still loving Colombia and I want to go back there. But nowadays, I don't know how I'm going to do that, because my specialization doesn't exist there. So I'm going to be an epidemiologist, but not a public health specialist. Public health there is not a big issue. So there are more issues important there, like political, guerrilla, violence, all the things that everybody knows about Colombia. And I say Colombia is beautiful, so I'm in a way positive that in the next 2 years I'm going to find something there.
Many countries, certainly Colombia and America, have struggled together with political problems with the cartels. And so I think hopefully alliances are building, and certainly economically Colombia is emerging, as many of the countries in that area are.
Yeah.
But it's one of the most promising areas of the globe.
Yeah.
And they're going to need public health.
I know. And it's in my mind and it's in my heart. I think that I'm doing many things here. I'm learning, I'm getting things from everybody that I can take to my hometown, to Bogota, to Colombia.
Those of us in public health practice know it's really impossible to be successful without understanding and working within a political system. Understanding politics and the goals of politicians seem to be a recurring theme in many of the conversations I have with students and practitioners at the Institute. It's not just the level of science and our knowledge about public health problems, but we also have to be aware of public values, and frankly, we have to work within a political system, not just here in the U.S., but throughout the world. So I asked a few of the participants if they had any parting words or advice for students listening to the podcast. Here's what they had to say.
In public health, you have to count with the political sides. You cannot leave it aside because you need it, and they also need you. They need public health. You cannot forget that you are a public
servant.
A public servant.
Yes.
And also in public health, many things influence public health, economics and tourism, and so you have to take everything in count.
Well, the lesson that I learned here was that you have to stick where you think is right. Despite the political issue, despite the pressure that you have been under, you have to stick where you think is right. I mean, if you think that you are doing right and you got all your people around you that think that you are right, that's the main thing here. Yeah. You are not alone in the way.
I think also just know your science. Have good scientific foundation, the best that you can. Acknowledge when it's incomplete. Knowing the limits of your science, having the best science that you can have, but also knowing how far that how far that can take you, and if there are limitations to it, to sort of operate within those boundaries. And I think it's quite a tricky, careful thing to get that right, to know when to act, to know when not to act. And I think that's been the biggest thing that's really stuck out for me.
I want to thank all of our participants here and thank you for listening to Public Health on the Inside.